So if you're watching this by now, you know that what we are doing here is lime washing, but the goal is to not make it stark white. We really wanted to lighten up this area. This is just not our vibe. It feels very log cabin, rustic resort, and it's not a priority right now to rip it all out and spend thousands of dollars redoing it to be our dream fireplace. So we're gonna try the lime wash thanks to our friends and partners at Lowe's, where we got all the materials. And Greg went ahead and prepped everything. He does go the extra mile. I don't know if the technique is great over here. There's probably like 50 strips, but the paint won't get anywhere, and that's the point and the goal. So success on the flooring, on the mantle, and then the fireplace gas insert. So we have the tarp down. He is about to mix everything up for me so I can take this on. So we are using this brand's lime wash in this white Avorio. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but this was one of the warmer, I want to say it was the middle tone white. I'll put up a graphic and in the blog post show a comparison between the colors. We didn't want to do all the sample game. We're just going to do it and figure it out and see if we regret it. But we're going to mix this up and get started.
Just following the directions, so it's saying to do 1.25 to 1.75 of water for every 2.5 liters of paint. So I'm gonna start with a little bit less water because you can always add more and then mix it together and see how it works.
And is it just like whatever our desired texture and thickness? Because we can paint on as much as we want or remove it with water.
Correct, yeah.
But do you have to get it to a certain consistency?
No, it's gonna be very watery.
This is what it looks like when you open it. So we're all prepped. We've got everything cleaned off. We used this cleaner, taped down, I explained all of that, and then mixed this. It's really to your liking, and then we figured that we should just keep stirring it occasionally to make sure that it doesn't harden. It's supposed to be a very liquidy material for this approach where we're not trying to get heavy texture. So now I'm going to spray it down entirely. I'll see if I need to respray, but you are supposed to wet every stone before putting the paint on. And then I will use this brush. If you're doing a larger fireplace, they make big wide ones. It's probably worth your time, especially if it goes all the way up. But this is what I'll be using, and I'll just film it all and we'll see how this turns out. So now I don't want this to be stark white, and I'm not sure how it's going to dry, but I also don't want to see brown coming through. I just want to lighten everything. So I'm just going to see if it works. My husband gave me a dish sponge. This is probably not what you should use, full disclosure, but we're rolling with it. So I'm going to see what it looks like to try to remove some of this from areas and go with it. Try one of these towels and see, because it's shredding the yellow sponge everywhere, but I'm starting to like, it doesn't look like brown, but it's giving more of a natural tone instead of something stark white. Yeah, so like that's probably too much coming off, but if we mix in, maybe it could work. I don't think it would make sense to spray. I'll try it, but spray directly. It's actually not, that might be the way to go, to spray directly and then decide if you want a white or not. It's still feeling a little white to me instead of a natural cream. Like the paint is very cream in color. I don't know if you can see from where you are. And it's going on kind of white. So I don't know, but we've committed, we've started it, so we gotta finish it out. in thicker here and washed away a lot of it over here. 90% sure I'm gonna hate this, but I'm gonna let it dry and just see. I thought that as a whole it would go on more, and I do need to, I think I'm gonna spray bottle it on to get into these crevices, because I don't have a typical like what's down here. It's not flat stone that's just gonna like all be cohesive. So I think that is the problem, is the gaps aren't making this look like a lighter stone. It looks like a stone that I clearly washed over. I don't like that you can see through this. So I'm gonna let it sit, think about it, and we'll go from there. All right, so I got a spray bottle, and efforts to try to even this out, I'm gonna spray on to try to get the in-betweens and get rid of that negative space dark spot, because right now it just looks like a very shitty job of applying, and it's not good. It's giving farmhouse. All right, so the spraying was a little bit messy, but when I came from different angles, it did help significantly with filling the cracks. So I do like what's going on here a little bit more. I think I need to let it dry and trust the process for a little bit. And then see what I think compared to this side over here. So this side was pretty wiped down, and this is pretty thick in areas and filled in the sides of the stone. And then I'll address what's going on with this stone as needed. Nobody ever knows what's gonna happen with these things, and most of the time they don't show you the process and the in-between, and if we land in a place that we hate it, that's fine. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out what we wanna do. But if this doesn't turn out the way that I hoped, it's something that I'm happy to share so that you can see the good, the bad, the ugly when it comes to stuff like this. Also consider, I didn't think I needed to do mortar because they're such fine areas, but that could be another way to kind of make it more flat and cohesive. So I'm gonna do that and then sit on it and think about mortaring as a way to fall in love with it. Okay, the spray bottle is the trick. It looks much better and more natural. So here is how it goes on. So you can see how it takes a second to kind of like refill. But it's already covering more surface area in its larger sprays. And then what I'll do is take my smaller brush after and smooth it out and go in between. So this is what kind of saved the project, if it is going to go well, in my opinion, on the front of the fireplace. The good news is that it's pretty easy to clean up, so if it's gotten on the walls, I just had a wet towel and wiped it off within a few minutes and it was fine. So I'll go in with the small brush now and then show you how it looks after. I mean, your wrist is going to be sore, but DIY ain't easy. Okay, so I have a little small brush here that is pretty good. It's like the width of most of the stones. And then I'm just gonna kind of spread it out. I mean, the good thing is that I don't want a consistent, tone across every single stone. So it's just gonna make sure that there's no drippage, because you don't want something like that where it looks super obvious that you painted, but the variation in the stones is gonna make it look a little more natural. I mean, anyone that comes in here is gonna know that we wash this, not watching the video, but by the way that it looks. So I'm not trying to avoid that. I'm just trying to, again, get the areas where there's a lot of the wash sitting still and creating a puddle. So I'll go horizontally and vertically and see how it looks, and try not to spray paint everywhere in the meantime. But you can see how already it's kind of more evenly addressing versus before when I was using the brush, it just was taking forever and it goes like this. And then if you have a lot of material on there, it's, you know, it drips everywhere. So in my opinion, this has been the easier way to tackle it pretty quickly. Now I'm going in with the spray bottle and the brush simultaneously to just kind of target some of the areas where I see the see-through or brush strokes or splatter. So again, the spray has been amazing to target certain little crevices that the brush just does not get in an even application. Again, I'm not worried about painting this as if it were paint to make it a solid color, but this just allows me to get into little areas that are otherwise a little difficult. And yes, this does not need to be perfect because it's the end of the room, and only someone, you know, occasionally sitting in the chair that's next to the fireplace would happen to gander over this way, but I like to do it right and get all of the details. So shout out to Greg for his amazing tape job, because I'm able to spray right against the wall and the tape will just remove right off and the paint underneath will not be impacted by it. So I would say this side all in took definitely less than 30 minutes. I haven't really been looking at the clock. I can go back and look at the timestamp of the video for you, but this was really fast and easy. So far from a process perspective, it's straightforward. We'll see if we like the end result. Last side, let's go. A little over 2 hours in, I'm gonna call it a wrap. So this looks darker because I just added more to it, so it's a little watered down. I think this is the best that it's gonna look. Had to end up going pretty thick with it on, but I think it's drying okay and not looking too stark white. I think it's gonna blend well with the walls and be the best that it could be for this. It's not gonna be our dream fireplace, but it'll be an improvement, and worst case scenario, we'll paint it a color and figure it out, but worth a try. Again, a little over 2 hours in, and then cleanup time, prep time, so not all lost if it doesn't go well. I hate it. All right, so since I absolutely hate it, and before you wonder if I use too much product, I really don't think so. Even diluted and sprayed a lot of water on everything in between. Excuse the baby, I'm going to spray water and try to scrub off and see where that leaves us. Just before 5, we have been scrubbing away to try to get this to be more of just a slate wash. With vinegar, water, rags, Miss Rachel for baby on the other side of the camera. Sally is over here, we're rocking. Greg hates me. Hopefully this all dries a lot lighter and brings out some of the original natural stone color. But at this point we feel like we have nothing to lose and it'll look better than the more solid wash that we had. All right, calling it a night here. We will see what it looks like in the morning. Who knows? Who knows if I'll ever share these videos. But certainly nothing to be embarrassed by. For having our first DIY fail 2 years in, that's pretty good. Par for the course. Okay, we have let this sit for just over a week now. It's always good to sit with any change, whether you react to it positively or not at first. It really takes anything to sink in, and it usually does get better with time. In this instance, I would say it definitely has from our initial live reactions that you saw earlier in the video. What I think first off saved this was going back in. We mixed white vinegar with water and took cloths and really scraped away a lot of it. So the technique that I used, still recommend. Using the spray bottle really got in all the crevices here of this stone, and you know, I still think mortaring it would help with some of that negative space, but wiping a lot of it away and bringing out that natural color underneath helps. I didn't want to do it too much and look too farmhouse, so that is the downside of the end result here. I do think it looks like the farmhouse style. I am not here to knock anybody's style. It is just not mine. And I do think that was a trend a couple of years ago that we definitely wanted to avoid. So with that, that is where the disappointment comes. It's definitely super white. I think hindsight, I would have practiced my own advice and planned a little bit more and been patient up front and maybe gotten and invested in the other colors just to try to sample them. We just hate wasting money, but also material. They only come in their big tubs. And so to try to sample from them was something that we were just willing to take the risk. And we figured mixing the water would give us that consistency enough. However, again, it's just a little bit white. What I think really saves the day is this screen cover. The stark contrast of the black with the stone just looks horrible. I don't know how other way to say it, but this completely softens up the space as a whole, but the fireplace, due to the tone, the texture, I cannot believe that this was $50. So absolutely worth it. It came in 2 days, and again, I think it just adds that personality, and then it also will be safer as our child starts to be more mobile. Other notes around process, again, this was just a few hours of a Sunday. What really ended up taking longer was how much we wanted to go back in and scrub away after, but still a one-day project, minor setup, cleanup, minor amount of materials, very budget friendly. So I think it's worth the risk. I think it's worth the chance that you take on it. It certainly is an improvement. No regrets. Do we love it? No. So where do we go from here? We are going to, like I said, sit with this a little bit longer. One thing I'm contemplating to make it more natural is just to step away from limestone altogether and look at, which was my original idea, and then again, I should always just trust my gut, but to look into some paint that we can kind of wash on and overlay. Of course, we want to make sure it can withstand the high heat, but I'm thinking something that's a little bit warmer that we overlay on just to bring out some variation and natural element to the stone. And then perhaps, if all else fails, just go with a paint color and paint this. But long term, if you missed it, and the goal of doing this is to just have this be a stepping stone to a larger full revamp of this fireplace, do a nice stone that fits our house, our style, that just goes all the way up, a different, open, yet safe fireplace, and one that just really unites the room. It is the first thing that you see, so you know, we want to make sure that we love this. So all in all, I think that if this is the look that you're going for, and you perhaps have a lighter stone, if you don't have stacked stone, I think that's the big thing that is the drawback in the look here. It's definitely DIY friendly. I think it's a great first DIY to try. It's very, very forgiving with the rag or the sponge to wipe away, and it's very minimal and prep. So being honest with you about the end result and my disappointment, I hope doesn't take away from you taking this on. So with that, be sure to follow along for updates on what we decide to do next here, as well as the many, many DIY projects that we have to come. We have plenty of spaces to renovate in our home, and we are so excited to bring you along for the ride. You can follow along on megleonard.co and on social media at megleonardco. That is on Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest, and we thank you for following along.